My name is Haley Paul, and I am the Policy Director for the National Audubon Society. Audubon is a member of the Water for Arizona Coalition, which supports policies and innovative practices to ensure a reliable water supply to meet the state's needs. We're really glad to have you today as part of our webinar series titled Groundwater in Rural Arizona, where we're going to explore the topic of Arizona's groundwater, why it's important, how its management or lack thereof affects rural communities, and what tools and solutions exist that work. Before we get into today's webinar, I did just want to let you know that this is a series, and so we will have another webinar next week, next Wednesday at noon, same time. And that webinar will focus on a deeper dive into how groundwater supports habitat and communities, and we'll dig deeper into the consequences of its overuse. So for today's webinar, our panel, we're very excited today to have Chairman John Huey of the Yavapai Apache Nation, Mojave County Supervisor Travislingenfelter, Mayor Clarinda Vale of the town of Tucson, and Erin Young, Water Resources Manager for the city of Flagstaff. I'm happy also to introduce our fabulous moderator, Jamie Kelly, who's General Counsel for the Mojave County Water Authority. Jamie Kelly is an attorney in private practice in Mojave County. Throughout her career, she has represented small irrigation and drainage districts. Jamie is also deeply embedded in the Arizona water community. She is a member of the Arizona Reconsultation Committee, the Governor's Water Augmentation Council, and she's also co-chair of one of those committees, the NonAMA Groundwater Committee. So we're in good hands, and with that, I will go off video and take it away, Jamie, to introduce our panelists and have a conversation. Thank you.
Can you hear me now? It's a
Yes.
pleasure. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be a part of this seminar today, and I'd like to express my gratitude to Audubon for hosting this series that's upcoming to keep the focus on groundwater and its use. I'd like to ask each of the panelists to tell us a little bit about themselves, their role in their community, and how it intersects with groundwater. Let's start with Travislingenfelter.
All right, great. Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, everyone on the call today, the meeting. I currently serve as, let me start my video here, sorry. The Mojave County District 1 Supervisor. Prior to that, I served as Vice Mayor for the City of Kingman. I also currently represent the county on the Mojave County Water Authority, and I've been a member of the Water Now Alliance since 2016. Historically, our region's economy has been grounded in ranching, in aviation, manufacturing, distribution, logistics, transportation, and tourism. Like the state of Arizona has done in recent years, the City of Kingman and Mojave County have focused on attracting, retaining, and expanding base industries to our region. These are targeted industries that manufacture and export products and import new money back into the economy. They pay an average wage of $53,000 a year. Many of them have benefits. You can raise a family on that. And in turn, those people become like the fabric of our community. They become our youth sports coaches, members of our civic clubs, charitable organizations. But since about 2012, the City of Kingman and the County of Mojave have had to deal with the rapid expansion of commercial agriculture out of our Hualapai Basin, which is a basin that does not have a history of supporting a high concentration of large-scale commercial agriculture, nor is it really suited to sustain a high concentration of large-scale commercial agriculture. So that's kind of where the government agencies in this area have become involved.
Thank you, Supervisor Lingenfelter. May we hear from Erin Young next, please?
Yeah, good morning or good afternoon, everyone. And thank you, Jamie. My name is Erin Young. I'm in my 8th year as the Water Resources Manager for the City of Flagstaff. And a large part of our water portfolio is groundwater from the regional sea aquifer. We share that with a number of small local water systems, but also more regionally with a number of tribal communities. We've been producing water from the sea aquifer since the 1950s and now comprises anywhere from 50 to 100, almost 100% of our water supply needs each year. So it's a very important supply to Flagstaff. And we're actually, we are very proactive in understanding the aquifer systems and the extent of impacts that drawing water from this aquifer has on other communities and the environment. So yeah, groundwater is very important to us and we're happy to be part of the panel today. Thank you.
Thank you. May we hear from Chairman Huey?
Hello, Dago Day. My name is John Huey, and I am the chairman of the Yavapai Apache Nation. Yavapai Apache Nation is located in Camp Verde, Arizona, which is essentially located right in the heart of the Verde Valley. We have the beautiful Verde River that runs through our community. As chairman of the Yavapai Apache Nation, one of the important duties I have is to secure a reliable water source for our tribe while also working to protect a healthy flowing Verde River. Not only do we have Yavapai Apache Nation, but we have other municipalities and counties, Yavapai, Cottonwood, Camp Verde, Sedona, all within this area. So it's really a unique and great area. A lot of the time I enjoy, fishing, hiking along the Verde River. And traditionally, we know that for our tribe, both Yavapai and Apache culture, water is life. It's a part of our creation story where our people came from. So the importance of water for our community is such a great need and desire. And we know that groundwater and surface water are pretty much all connected. So we worry about unregulated groundwater pumping upstream of us from our community. And that does have concerns. So thank you for allowing me to be here and speak on behalf of my tribe today. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Chairman Huey. And we last but not least, Mayor Vale.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for having me today. It's such an important topic that we're discussing today. So I'm a 3rd generation and 48-year resident of the Tucson and Grand Canyon area, and I'm just proud to live in this magnificent place. And I'm honored to have been elected mayor, and I just took office last December. I've always tried to be very active, citizen in our community, in our state, and our county. And all development in our areas really have to consider water number one. Of course, a lot of other things, aesthetics and the size and density and all other kinds of things. But particularly here, we have to be giving always the thought to what is at our back door. There is only one Grand Canyon National Park, and protecting its seeps and springs is something that I have spent a large amount of my adult life trying to do. And so I thank you for having me today.
Thank you. I'd like you to each expand just a bit about what the water means to you and your community, and just what does groundwater sustain that is important to your community. And we'll start with Erin Young this time.
Okay. Well, what does water mean to Flagstaff? We're a thriving community, and we have a pretty strong ethic for water conservation. Starting really, our city council in the 1990s took a lot of actions in city code and developing water conservation programs to curtail per capita water use, which was on a steep incline. And we've been on a decline ever since. Water affords us a pretty well-rounded community. our residential sector using about 50% of all water produced, and then we have our commercial and institutional and industrial using the other 50%. So that includes Northern Arizona University and a number of important industries to Northern Arizona. And was the second question what groundwater sustainability means to our community?
Yes.
Jamie, sorry about that. I'll just share that from my perspective as a water manager. I'll point to a directive from our city council over 10 years ago now, and that was to apply for a designation of adequate water supply from the Arizona Department of Water Resources. That's a framework available to communities to adopt, and it is designed around sustainability in mind. So we did achieve our adequate water supply designation, which includes proving physical supply for 100 years. That's pretty huge for a rural community that's not, it's not mandatory that we participate in that program. So I would say that's what sustainability affords our community. It affords longevity if you're investing in Flagstaff for that long-term water supply. I just had a call yesterday from a gentleman wanting to move to Flagstaff, and he said, how is your water supply looking? And I got to explain what adequacy means for our community. So that's my answer.
Well, thank you. Chairman Huey?
Take it off mute. Thank you so much. So for Yavapai Apache Nation, like I said, the water, specifically the Verde River, it's a part of our creation story for both of our cultures. We came from the underworld and came out into this world, and water carried a woman through here and gave birth to our tribes. So for our community, it's really deep. It's our life thread for our community. A lot of the plants that grow along the Verde River are used in our cultural ceremonies for our men and our women. So really the Verde River and water in general for our community, it means so many different things. We do know that, groundwater sustains the Verde River, particularly when there isn't a lot of snow, melt, or rain for our area, which we don't get a lot of. It's really important to understand how our river works, both water below the ground and water on top as well. Groundwater also supports the health of our springs and seeps through our ancestral lands, which are important areas for us to continue to keep practicing our culture and our beliefs here in Middle Verde. So water to us, and being in this area since time immemorial, before a lot of people came to this area, has so many different meanings for the Yavapai Apache Nation.
Thank you, Chairman Huey. Mayor Vale?
So I guess my first thought just to this was, if you don't have water, you don't have a community. Water in and around Tucson has possibly even more to consider, as I said before, due to its proximity to the Grand Canyon, and any large developments in Tucson or the Valley area, or there's a lot of areas to call that, Red Lake, and north of that, Woodland Ranch. There's a lot of development that is happening out there. But any development in those areas could really affect the seeps and springs of the Grand Canyon. Tucson has really done everything it can, I think, with our expensive A+ quality and award-winning reclaimed water facility here in Tucson. It has reduced our potable water usage by about 50%. And that's large. There's a lot of people that were involved in that, but Pete Shear is one I always really want to mention, because he's been on our Tucson Sanitary District Board for many, many, many years, and has accomplished so much with regards to water. So, and groundwater just sustains our entire community and all the guests that we serve. the wildlife here. As a hiker of the Grand Canyon, especially to a lot of the more remote areas of the Grand Canyon, you really appreciate every little pool, every little seep, every little spring, you know, that can be discovered. And I just don't feel that we've had a lot of really great, you know, research done yet to really know even what, you know, all the effects are. So I guess that's what I would say, is that I'm worried in, you know, sustaining. That's why sustaining is so important to me, because I'm worried how we're gonna sustain it. So thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Lingenfelter.
Thank you, Jamie. Well, obviously, the Hualapai Basin in this area for Mojave County and for Kingman, that's the only source of water that the city of Kingman has. And it supports the city of Kingman's municipal water supply, all of our residents, our businesses, all of our visitors. But besides that, the Hualapai Basin also supports the city of Kingman's municipal airport, our industrial park, which is the largest industrial concentration in the state of Arizona outside of Metro Phoenix. Not a lot of people know that. As far as the residents and the businesses, you're probably talking about just under 70,000 people or so. It's comparable to the Casa Grande area between Phoenix and Tucson. But, you know, I have a few stats I'd like to share with everybody that, you know, the Kingman Airport and Industrial Park, you know, it creates an economic impact of $574.3 million per year. That includes impacts from airport administration, our on-airport businesses, our short line railroad, which is called Patriot Rail, and the businesses located within the industrial park. We have a total of 75 businesses that call the Kingman Industrial Park home, and those businesses create direct economic and fiscal impacts of $406.7 million per year. We have approximately 2,600 people that work in the Kingman Industrial Park, and those 2,600 people, they represent about 20% of Kingman's total employment base. Obviously, all businesses, you know, they need stability for their planning when they're looking at expansion and growth and even attraction. And water certainty is obviously critical to that stability and to Kingman's future growth. So that's really what's at stake for us.
Thank you, Supervisor Lingenfelter. The next question for the panelists to address is to tell us about groundwater challenges that your community is facing. Use a specific example or examples if you can. And what actions, if any, are you taking or thinking about taking to deal with these challenges? And Chairman Huey, we'll start with you.
Thank you so much. One of the biggest impediments to protecting the Verde River is the inability under state law currently to protect it from groundwater pumping that impacts flows. I think that is probably what you'll hear from many folks in rural Arizona, but as a fairly recognized tribe, we bring a tool to the table that can help address this challenge, which is Indian water rights settlements. We're currently working with our neighboring communities and with stakeholders to build a settlement that both protects the nation's water supply, but also ensures a flowing Verde River benefiting the entire Verde Valley. As a matter of fact, a lot of my time is meeting with the surrounding leaders, the mayors, to have a lot of discussion about how the river works, what's important to each community, and how we're going to solve this problem of making sure that it continues to flow for them as it does for us. Our biggest tool, like I said, is supporting us with our continued water rights settlement, because if the water flows for us and we can assure that, then the water will flow for them as well. We do have some availability because we are a fairly recognized tribe to have that, you know, capability to reach a water settlement. And that's what we bring to the table for our specific area, and it's really unique. And I'm familiar with a lot of your areas. We always inquire about the local tribes and see what they're doing, what type of water projects they have to conserve and keep water insured for their communities. And, you know, there might be something as well that other communities can join in the effort with. So thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Huey. Mayor Vale.
So I guess I would just open with adding a little bit to what the chairman said, that we have had in our area too lawsuits brought by the Havasupai tribe to numerous wells that really did move forward for a variety of reasons. Maybe they should have sued AWDR that puts out the permits, some things like that, that even my family's company even is associated with one well here in Tucson that only serves the Red Feather Lodge. But we have long said, we would, if there's another option, we would love to have it, because we do not want to be affecting those things. But there was quite a bit, I'm not for sure of the number, but I think it was like 18 or 20 different well owners between here all the way to Williams that were sued. So that is something that you know, as my family's company was, we provided numbers. We were very willing to participate and look at that process, but some other well owners are not of that same mind. And I think that that's something that we have to work on changing as well. But being a running water or flood waters, we're in a 1,200 year drought, even though luckily we have gotten some rain lately, yes. But I really feel that some other rural management areas are really needed to come to fruition. We really need to be looking at management areas outside of just the urban areas of Arizona. All of Arizona is really growing, and to be sustainable, it seems other management areas may be needed. Instead of each area kind of doing what they want and not really thinking of what cause it could have to adjacent areas, I really just think we need a plan to help protect and sustain water with all the experts involved, not just people kind of doing whatever they want. And because I feel like that's a little bit what has been going on, is there are no particular rules. So each town or council or board or anything can kind of just do what they want. And I will tell you, is from me becoming mayor, I'm not comfortable with that. I'm not a water expert. And I feel like some type of active management areas could help a lot of good serving people, but that we really need more of the expertise involved. And that's going to take some other management areas, I believe. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor Vale. And Supervisor Lingenfelter.
Thank you, Jamie. So our challenges are, as I said before, that the large commercial farms, they really started to show up in the Hualapai Basin around 2012 or so. Before that, in the Hualapai Basin aquifer, the outflow from the aquifer historically exceeded the inflow to the aquifer, creating a relatively small amount, or for practical purposes, negligible water budget deficit of about 5,600 acre feet. That's 2011 data based on a USGS study. By 2016, due to the big commercial farms that started to move into the area, the associated outflow from the aquifer increased by an additional 32,000 acre feet, thus increasing the annual water deficit in the teen study on that. Currently, we have 12 relatively large-scale commercial agriculture operations, each operating and having cultivated acreages of over 300 acres each. For these farms, the total currently cultivated area is 8,400 acres. Estimated total annual water demand for those farms is 34,734 acre feet per year. Currently growing approximately 7,833 acres of orchards and about 657 acres of alfalfa. Based on the county assessor's data that we have and previous discussions with the farmers that Mojave County has had, Mojave County estimates the full build out for those farms will result in 35,728 acres that are cultivated, and with an associated total water use by those farms of 149,510 acre feet per year. Obviously, that has a lot of people up here alarmed, and they see that that's not really sustainable. We don't have that history of a large concentration of commercial agriculture operating out of the Hualapai aquifers. it basically changes everything for our economy, for residential, everything. So what we've been doing, Mojave County partnered in 2017 with the city of Kingman. We partnered with them and we had the USGS do an additional water study to measure the health of the basin and do projections about what we thought that the basin, or what the USGS rather thought the basin had left. Those predictions were based on some of the crop differences. Prior to that, ADWR had done another water study on the Hualapai Aquifer. Most people know that study as the matrix study, and there was a lot more alfalfa included in that study than what we found in the USGS study, and we're still waiting for the final version of that study to be published. Just yesterday during our Mojave County West Basin Water User Study Committee, ADWR said that, you know, they're anytime they're looking for that USGS study to be put out. But we're trying to get as much data as we can, and we're really involved at the state legislature right now, pushing for some new common sense groundwater management tools. Everybody knows that there's an AMA, but we're pushing for more collaboration between a region and ADWR, and pushing for something called a rural management area, which would have local input as well. And we've been pushing on that. We're going to push for it again this next legislative session. We simply have to have more water tools from a policy standpoint to manage this and not get in a situation that perhaps the people in Wilcox are in right now, you know, where they have a lot less options than we do right now. So.
Well, thank you, Supervisor Lingenfelter. The next question is, what do you think needs to happen within Arizona at a local, regional, or state level in order to ensure your community has water for the future? Supervisor Lingenfelter started to touch on that on the RMA, and I think Mayor Vale may have referred to it also. But we are going to start with Supervisor Lingenfelter again. If you could maybe talk about the RMA a little bit more, and perhaps the recharge projects that Mojave County and the city of Kingman have partnered on.
Absolutely. You know, and thank you for that, because when you go down to the state legislature, one of the first questions that they'll always ask you is, what are you doing locally? Do you have any skin in the game? These types of things. And Mojave County and the city of Kingman, they do. You know, thankfully, our Mojave County assessor right now, I believe that she's the only assessor in the state of Arizona that's actually going out and evaluating the commercial wells so that they can be taxed. That is allowed under Arizona state statute. And we had to do that, and she had to do that, because we had a home developer out of the Las Vegas area before the housing crash that got denied a 100-year water supply for one of his large developments he was going to do in Mojave County. And then he took it upon himself to really go out and educate himself on Arizona's rural groundwater law, and he started to exploit it. And he started drilling just a ton of wells in an area called Red Lake. And it's just really gone on from there. So I'm glad that our assessor, she's doing what she can. She said, okay, if you're going to be out there drilling all these large scale commercial wells, we're going to tax you for those wells in accordance with the law. So I'm glad that she's doing that. That's one tool. The city of Kingman and Mojave County have also become very active with recharge efforts. There are multi-million dollars of planned passive recharge projects from city of Kingman, their private partners from Mojave County, that are going to be going in the area around what we call Rattlesnake Wash. So we're excited about those. In addition, the city of Kingman, they're going to be installing a number of dry well projects throughout the city. They're also looking at other areas within the city where we can have passive recharge, retention basins and things like this. The city of Kingman also has one active recharge project that they're working on right now. It's out at their Kingman wastewater treatment plant. And that project is actually going to be able to push between 1 million and 1.5 million gallons of treated effluent per day back into the aquifer. So there are a number of different things that the county and the city are doing. We also have, because of all of the things that we've seen with agriculture, we've formed basically a working group between Kingman and Mojave County for water sustainability. And there's a lot of really good work that's come out of that working group as well. Unfortunately, and I don't think people realize it, that even with all of those efforts, by our estimation, you know, all we gain is another 8 or 9 years. We take another 8 or 9 years onto the projections that we're seeing, because we recapture all this water, we recharge all this water, and it just gets sucked back out by these large-scale commercial farms at a more rapid rate. So part of the puzzle has to be new policy tools, such as a rural management area. And we're working very closely with Regina Cobb and many others throughout the state in rural Arizona. For those common sense tools, we're also looking at the possibility of a small law change when it has to do with irrigation on expansion areas, where the current the ADWR director is not allowed to look at projected withdrawal. They have to look at current withdrawal. Well, that's kind of too late. So what we're asking is, based on credible sources such as a USGS water model, which the county of Mojave and the city of Kingman paid the USGS to build this water model, that based on credible and reliable sources, that the ADWR director would be able to look at and consider projected rates of withdrawal in order as a part of making an INA decision. So that's another tool. I think most of our efforts right now are focused on the rural management area legislation and really bringing everybody in to help craft that so it's well balanced. I know that yesterday we had testimony from the Farm Bureau, and they committed to working very closely with Mojave County, getting accurate data, and also with, I think, the study committee yesterday to provide input. So hopefully we can get there this next legislative session, because you know, the longer it goes, the more water it gets sucked out. So
Thank you, Supervisor. Erin Young.
Thank you, Jamie. So what do I think needs to happen within Arizona? We've just heard, you know, about the rural management area, which for rural Arizona, I agree that regulation needs to happen. It's a lot to ask of communities or individuals to kind of self-police and do the right thing. We have to think broader and coordinate in rural Arizona through regulation. I think that needs to happen. And for me, I'm thinking ADWR requirements such as reporting groundwater pumped and water levels, that should be mandatory. So at least they have data to indicate when a problem might be happening. And groundwater drawdown regulations. One of the challenges we have in Flagstaff is we are policing ourselves. We do have one of our well fields from the 1950s, and drawdown is significant, over, well, about 150 feet of drawdown since that time. There's no regulation telling us that we need to back off of the aquifer, but we know we need to do that. That's just a best practice. There's nothing in statute to prevent what's happening in the Hualapai Basin. That hasn't happened in Flagstaff, and we're fortunate for that. We're the big dog in the Little Colorado River, at least as part of the Little Colorado Basin. Flagstaff is the biggest pumper of the sea aquifer. And I think fortunately we're proactive, we're doing the right thing as stewards of the resource. But if somebody moves in who isn't looking at it that way, that's a scary future for a community. Another challenge, actually, I'll mention, and what I think needs to happen is just protection of our watersheds from wildfire. We're still faced with 80% of our supply coming from forested terrain around Flagstaff that hasn't been thinned or dealt with. And I understand the challenges attracting industry to removing that material. For-fry has been a thing since I started 8 years ago in this position, and there's just not a lot happening and not a lot of investment. And so we're having to invest in, taking action in our watersheds. We passed a bond in Flagstaff, $10 million some years ago now, to thin the steep areas of our forests where for-fry wasn't scheduled to thin. So that's an initiative Flagstaff took on our own. Other things that we've done include a lot of local partnerships with agencies such as our National Park Service area national monuments, Walnut Canyon, the Coconino National Forest, the USGS. We have the Sea Aquifer monitoring program, and then we have the Lake Mary monitoring program. So data collection is really important. And again, why I think that should be regulated, at least with groundwater pumping. So I'll leave it there, Jamie. Thank you.
Thank you. Chairman Huey?
Thank you. I think the most important thing Arizonans can do really is to start cooperating on water management in Arizona, whether it be groundwater, surface water, cap water, and look at all the tools that are on the table that every area is unique and has available. I mentioned that we're working towards a water rights settlement. I definitely encourage anyone in rural Arizona to look towards those neighboring tribes and think about how those tribes can be partners. Too much of the state's history has been about conflict between tribal and non-tribal communities, but as we face the pressures of climate change and population growth, non-tribal leaders need to understand tribes can be partners in sustainable solutions. And understanding each tribe's unique culture, unique land demographics is important for those non-tribal leaders to understand that not all tribes are the same. I'm always, like I said before, speaking with mayors and county commissioners and other partners that we deal with on continuously trying to come up with, certain projects that allow to keep water both in the Verde River and other new possible ideas to bring water to the Verde River. And there have been some great groundbreaking things that have been done. We spent a lot of money on a lot of reports, whether it be hydrology, ethnicology, modeling reports. And we've had some great people work for our tribe to kind of tell us what would be best and how we're going to kind of get over some of these issues within the Verde Valley. And some of the surrounding areas, I don't believe, have done some of that work. So we're working hard to try to share that information with our surrounding communities to let them know that we do have assets and investment in some of these things, that we're willing to work with other communities and kind of get a better idea of exactly how does our Verde River specifically, how does it work? What operates it? What's going to keep it going? And I will say for our area, we have been very successful with trying to collaborate with our partners. Everybody's been very open to our tribe, and we all agree that water in Arizona is diminishing, and we need to have a very serious talk, not only at the rural level, but with those senators in Congress on what is Arizona going to do? What's going to be the solution? It's going to be tough and really hard to work through, but we are making some gains in our area with our settlement. And, we appreciate all the work that everybody puts in on this subject.
Thank you, Chairman. Mayor Vale.
Definitely, I know that I did mention the rural water management areas, but that is something that I feel like still a lot of areas are not so aware of the many years that something like that has been trying to move forward. So just awareness of many people on that issue, I think is really important, because it's very hard to get the state legislature or the federal legislature or anyone to care if we haven't gotten the people to start pounding their phones and showing up at those type of things. So that's the main thing I've been kind of trying to work on. And definitely there are rural water coalitions, as some other folks probably here have spoke of, with a lot of other city people and town people here in town, in the state, that I've been gotten involved with as well. But growth really is happening everywhere. And I feel like we are just years behind on this issue. With the other things that have been brought up, here today, I really agree with the well reporting. It is something that nobody really knows exactly what's happening. And with us all having these type of concerns, it seems like we just have to go back to some of the basics of things that would show us some things that are going on. And Arizona has just not really had it on the plate, I guess I would say, with anything to do with groundwater and just in rural Arizona. And it's beyond time that it gets put on a top shelf.
Thank you, which leads us into the final question. Do you think that the Arizona decision makers fully understand what is happening in your community when it comes to groundwater? If you could share one thing with them, what would you have them know about your groundwater issues and how important and urgent it is to address it? And we will start with Erin Young this time.
When it's gone, it's too late. And I know they've heard it before, but it's so true. Groundwater, it doesn't just replenish over a good snow season. Just, protecting the Arizona we know and love today, we have to take action now.
Thank you. Chairman Huey?
More discussions like we're having right now with fellow leaders that, have serious concerns. And I appreciate everybody's comments on this subject, because I've been taking notes here, and everybody's got some other unique ideas on how we can let our leaders know that our specific areas, all your areas, including my community, all have specific needs and specific, things to it that make them unique. And public leaders and decision makers, it's up to us to do the hard work to make sure we're managing water in a sustainable way that includes acknowledging that water is physically connected, and policy changes to one type of water will affect others. It's all connected. And because those challenges are serious, all decision makers need to look at every tool that can be used to address them, including, like I've mentioned again, water rights settlements with tribes and moving things forward. Arizona needs to deal with this issue and needs to come up to make a strategy for everybody to assist in every community, because it's such an important issue.
Thank you, Chairman. Mayor Vale.
The first thing I think of with this question is that I would want to take them to some seaport spring or to Havasupai inside the Grand Canyon. And when you see what water means to those areas and what we know that it means to the wildlife and to everything living, including ourselves, when we're hiking around the Grand Canyon, that's the main thing that I maybe some of them are, aware of the issue, but I sure have seen people go down the Colorado River or take a hikes to somewhere in the canyon and come out with a different perspective. So that's what I would mainly say is go visit one of those places, or please talk to somebody involved with the Havasupai tribe and get their perspective, I think is the most perspective that I would really like them to have.
Thank you. Supervisor Lingenfelter.
Yeah, thank you. I would also say, if you really want to get an idea of a situation, especially the one that's going on in the Hualapai Aquifer right now, come up to Kingman and Mojave County, and we'll get you up in the county's plane, and we'll fly you around, and we'll show you what's really happening on the ground, and everybody that depends on this aquifer for their livelihood. You look at all of the commercial agriculture that's happened in a very, very short period of time versus a typical economy, and it leads you to the question, how can this be possible under the law? So I think it just really demonstrates, that we are behind when it comes to rural water management, rural water law. So, when it comes to Arizona's rural aquifers and the rural economies that they support, one size doesn't fit all when it comes to the water law, and we need to work together. High concentrations of large scale commercial agriculture just isn't a great fit in the Hualapai aquifer, perhaps in other parts of the state. That's not to single out unfairly commercial agriculture, because we understand their importance, but we all have to work together to balance competing uses and responsibly, take care of our rural water resources. Thank you.
Thank you. And before I ask for last comments from all of the panelists, I have to take this opportunity to plug the NonAMA Groundwater Committee. The next meeting is October 14th. It's a webinar. I encourage you all to log in and have your voices heard. We are going to review the committee's goals. And one of the goals was about groundwater management. We need to hear your voices in those rooms. We've heard the voices that don't want change in those rooms. So we need the voices. Also, there's an informal group starting to work together to support each other on issues that they have in common. It's an informal rural water coalition. If you have an interest in that, email me and I'll send you the information. They have a meeting coming up the first week in October. It is going to take the type of support that the panelists have been speaking about to affect change in rural Arizona. So I'm going to open it up and you can go in any order you want, or I can call on you to summarize or to add to your comments that you've made today. And then I'll turn it back to Haley and she can see if there's any questions in the chat. That's more than I can cope with. So would somebody like to go first, or shall I call? Oh, Erin Young, thank you.
I'll go first. I should have shared during the last comment that groundwater should be the last resource. There's so much room for water conservation. So too, our electeds support water conservation wherever we can. And water reuse, I know that's huge in Tucson and it's big in Flagstaff, and there's still a lot of opportunity for reuse, and that just helps to protect our groundwater sources. So yeah, thank you so much for having the webinar.
Thank you, Erin. Another panelist? Chairman Huey.
Thank you, Jane.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Quinda, go ahead.
I was just going to add to what Erin said there, because I just briefly said about our water use, but since 1988 in Tucson, it has been required that all plumbing be double plumbed. So all of our potties, all of the bathrooms everywhere in town are double plumbed. And so that is just something that, yes, I would really like to, to promote too, because that is the way that we've reduced our potable water by nearly 50% with our Tucson sanitary district, and all of anything in town for irrigation water that way, which is minimal. It's pretty much all xeriscaping. But it has just been amazing that they hoped that it would reduce potable water by maybe 30 or 35%. We did not expect that is how much that's going down the toilet. And so that is something, yes, always for Grand Canyon National Park and its concerns with an aging sewer system and stuff, that I am always is very important that we start doing. It's, and one of the main ways to reduce the water that we're using out of the ground. Thanks.
Chairman.
Great, thank you. Thank you everybody for your comments. I will share a statement that was done by one of our tribal elders out of 1937. Her name was Mary Sign, and she said, as long as the river flows, life will be good. And that's been documented with our tribe for a long time. Like I said, water to my people, it's life. as it is for all of your people. I want to thank you all, and I wish you all to be safe travels. God bless you all. Thank you all.
Thank you. Supervisor Lingenfelter?
Thank you, Jamie. Well, I want to just thank all the sponsors of this program today. I think it was very valuable, a lot of great content. I'm also involved in some of the rural groups, and I'm so thankful that through technology, you know, that we've all been thrust into using last year. We're using it for a good cause. We have these coalitions that are building and growing between regional, you know, county supervisors, local elected officials, and many, many others on the issue of this conversation of groundwater in rural Arizona. What do we do about it? How do we come together as a coalition for rural Arizona and work with the legislature to come up with some common sense new tools? And you know, the work that's being done, it's so important. It'll be valuable for all of our children and our children's children, because I've heard many people here say that the water in rural Arizona, it's finite, and we have to do the very best we can to make sure that everybody is served. So thank you again.
Okay, there's a few more comments in the chat. I would like to mention. One is the Water for Arizona Coalition that's part of this webinar series. You can obtain more information there. And I'd like to thank Representative Galbadon for putting in the vetting forum for water. It's an opportunity to meet with legislatures and discuss contemplated legislation. And thank you for joining us today, Representative Galbadon. Haley, back to you.
Thank you. As we close this out, I just wanted to give my heartfelt thanks for everyone's time on this panel. Cannot express our gratitude enough for joining us, for expressing your views and sharing with us these critical issues facing your community. I want to also thank everyone who has been putting in the chat. It's been a very robust chat, and so we were not able to answer your questions on the fly. We'll try our best to think of a good way to kind of get these questions asked to the panelists if they were directly asked to the panelists, and then also find a way to follow up with you. So just wanted to thank everyone for commenting and being really involved. And then remind you that we have 2 more webinars in this series. We're going to keep diving into this topic. We're going to talk about impacts of overuse and then end with solutions, and on a high note. So Wednesday the 29th and Wednesday, October 6th, noon. We hope you will join us. And with that, I'll let everyone get back to their day. Thank you so much.